For anyone that's a quilter, this doesn't really need an introduction, but for those who aren't, there are 12 quilt stores here in 2 city blocks. They have now named this town Quilt Town, USA, Hamilton, Missouri. It started with one lady opening a quilt shop, and it just grew and grew. They've specialized in selling pre-cuts, and they sell all over the world. Jenny Doan, the original quilter, is still there. Her family owns the stores, and they have just revitalized this town, have brought it to life. And she does videos on YouTube to show tutorials of how to use their fabrics and to make different quilt patterns. And it's the sort of place that you just think, oh, someday wouldn't it be fun to go to Hamilton? But you don't ever really think that you're going to get to go. So it really was a big deal for me to be able to go and just see this place. I'm not necessarily a quilter that uses pre-cuts, but I just love the idea of having so many stores and having so many helpful, happy people all around. It was just really fun to do. I wanted to start out in the main shop. It's basically a sample store. Each shop that they have has a little section inside so that you can kind of see what they offer. And of course there's a gift shop as well. And then we go to the individual stores. Wear a mask like Jenny. So each of the shops has their own theme. There's one for florals, one for batik fabrics, one for kids and baby. It just goes on and on. And they have this small section of fat quarters that I was looking at here, but other than that, there really weren't fat quarters unless they were in bundles. The one thing that I thought was kind of funny is this is the one store that hasn't been willing to cut a fat quarter for me. So many beautiful fabrics though, and so many neat shops. All the quilts have hung up above. You could get patterns for, and you could get the little kits, and you could get bundles of fabric to make them. Total quilter's overload. Technically, I feel like I could have bought 12 pieces of fabric because, you know, there's 12 different shops. The ironic part was this shop, the batik one, was the one that I first found a fabric that I knew I wanted to take home with me. But there were several ladies that had 10 or 12 bolts of fabric in their arms waiting to be cut when I was in there, so we decided to come back later. And then forgot, and so never actually got the first fabric that I had picked out. This one has machines and tools and rulers. I didn't really need anything in here, but I wanted to see them all. This one is licensed to sew. This is where they have character fabrics and other licensed things, sports teams and so on. And of course there is Missouri Star Company fabric. And I think that's the first time I've seen a Stormtrooper and a Darth Vader inside a quilt store. This is their old JCPenney's building. It really was a JCPenney store. And Ethan, there's some fluffy butt sheep fabric for you. So I got a fabric that Keith had picked out. Of course, I got some Missouri Star Quilt Company fabric. And the green with the stars is what Keith had picked out because he thought that was kind of representative of Missouri, being green. We saw a lot of green. And little gnomes to make a quilt for Christmas. If you've ever wondered what more than 1,000,000 yards of thread looks like on a 22-foot tall spool, this is what it looks like. This started in 2018 with 1,000,000 yards, and quilters are encouraged to bring thread to add to it, so who knows how many it is now. And this is the Missouri State Quilt Museum. We had visited the one in Iowa, which is very famous. I have to say, sorry Iowa, I like Missouri's better. This was in an old school building, high school, I believe. So many quilts and so many different varieties of quilts. Antique quilts, modern quilts. They had a lot of quilts from local people, which I thought was really cool, with little stories of what they had done and what had inspired them. Different rooms were set up with different themes. And as you'll see, Keith and I did not stay together in this. He was doing a good job of recording different things, and I was getting stuck looking at small details. Lots of antique sewing machines in there. All different kinds. Ones that I had never even seen or knew existed. And the quilt on the bed there is a crazy quilt that is actually from the 1800s. It looks like it's brand new, but somebody had wrapped up some stuff in it and stuck it in a trunk, and so it just has been preserved. This is the room that had miniature quilts. Definitely a favorite of mine. I love miniatures and I love quilts, so this is a double win. You can see there's some thimbles there. There's actually a room that has a whole ton of thimbles in it. They're working on trying to have the largest thimble collection in the world. They're not there yet, but they're well on their way. This is a quilt with famous signatures that was done as a fundraiser. Bob Hope, John Wayne, I can't even remember all the names. Ronald Reagan was on there. There's part of the thimbles. And some more. They had two special exhibits while we were here. This one was celebrating women having the right to vote, women's suffrage. This was the second exhibit. This is from the National Quilt Museum. These are some amazing quilts. It was fun seeing one honoring Lewis and Clark's voyage because, you know, we've been seeing several things on our trip about that. Keith and I argued about which of those two quilts was the best. But just such incredible workmanship and detail. And this was the toy room. These are all toy sewing machines. I had no idea there were so many in the world. It just keeps going and going. And they said that there are some of these machines that are considered toys, but they are actually working sewing machines. They're just little. I was amazed to see how many of them had their original boxes or their original cases. This one was beautifully hand quilted, and it's quite old, but it's still in remarkably good shape for as old as it is. I had a great time. It was so much fun visiting.